Today's show is brought to you by Imperial Yeast. You hear us gushing over Imperial Yeast all the time, and that's because their yeast performs for us in every batch that we brew. Imperial Yeast is adored by commercial breweries and home brewers alike. Their pitch right pouches are jam-packed with over 200 billion fresh yeast cells, guaranteed to deliver flawless, fast fermentations every time. Imperial Yeast strains are grown by a team of pro brewers and home brewers who live to help other brewers learn more and ferment better. Join any recipe receiving tier of our Super Duper Homebrew Club and get a free upgrade to premium Imperial Yeast with every recipe kit that ships out to you. Learn more at homebrewhappyhour.com/club and come brew with us.
Entertaining shows with content that spreads information and sparks discourse throughout the community. This is the Pearl Media Network.
Getting citrus flavors in your beer using the same gear for various types of brewing, lactose versus maltodextrin, and dumping everything from the boil kettle into the fermenter. This is Homebrew Happy Hour, episode 233. And welcome to the Homebrew Happy Hour. This is the show where we supply the answers to your homebrewing questions and discuss all things related to craft beer. If you have a question that you would like us to discuss on a future episode, you can go to homebrewhappyhour.com and click on that submit a question link at the top of the page, or now you can call or text them in by using 325-305-6107. I am your host, Joshua Stubing. Today, I'm joined by the Director of Operations at homebrewsupply.com, Mr. Ladik Joe Ermis. Joe, how are you doing, my friend?
Hey, pretty good.
Good. Thank you for taking the time out of the day. You are like, you're not a hard man to get on the show. You're just swamped, and I always feel bad about being like, hey, can I borrow an hour of your day?
No worries, man. No worries. Glad to be here. It's been a while.
It has been a while. Two things I want to get done at the top or address. The Imperial ad. It says, I'm glad Todd's not on today.
I was going to say, yeah, he would have definitely called you out.
He would have called me out. It's not the Super Duper Homebrew Club.
Longer.
It is the Trub Club that they just, same domain, homebrewhappyhour.com/club, but it's not the Super Duper Club. Don't ever call it that. We're not even talking about it according to Todd. But also, I need to clarify in that, because people I've gotten so many messages of people who will write and say, hey, your ad says that you get a free upgrade to Imperial Yeast with every recipe that goes out to you if you're in that
if
tier.
You're in the club.
Yeah, but the actual stipulation is our monthly recipes that go out.
Including.
So the next version of that ad for next week, I'll be clearer. I'll just say, I'll say your recipe kits
that
get
would be nice.
free.
I mean, we could consider like another tier or something for that. It would be complicated to do on our side. I think,
we've talked about it with Imperial. We're in active talks about more collaboration because I don't get it, dude. Why they're so benevolent to us? Like we hit up
really
Casey or Owen, and they're like,
yeah.
What do you want to do? Here's a pallet of yeast if you want it, or like,
we can't deal with that.
Yeah, but we have talked about like, what would it look like? Would we make a tier that they get a monthly recipe from us, and any additional ones they get
order separate from
they'll
that.
also get a free upgrade.
Yeah,
that would be cool.
We'll have to figure out how it's going to work in the back end.
Well, that's the problem is because Homebrew Happy Hour itself, we don't have inventory of anything. We don't keep stock.
Right.
Homebrew Supply, you are fulfilling our orders when we have the recipe.
But I mean, it would just have to be some kind of promo code or something that they would use, but it would be hard to make it only apply to that, it would be some finagling.
There's logistics that we
could probably figure it out.
There's a lot of stuff with Trub Club. You and I brainstormed yesterday for a while on the best way of getting people to be able to order their monthly kit on their own.
Right.
Because right now, still Patreon's our only method of having them join Trub Club until our server issues are resolved. Thank you, Peter, or is it I'll just say Parker. That's Spider-Man, Peter Parker. It was Peter, I'm pretty sure, reached out and
you never know what he does, off the clock.
You're right. Yeah. Spider-Man's helping us with our PHP woes on our server.
Oh, nice.
So hopefully we get our in-house stuff resolved so we can have 2 platforms, because we have a dozen plus people who haven't joined our Trub Club at all yet. And they're like, I don't really want to use Patreon just for whatever reason.
Oh, sure.
But I'll join it direct on your site if you offer it. So I've really been like, oh, we got to do it, man.
Yeah, yeah.
It's getting there. It's getting close. But that should be close. But right now, Patreon's the only way to do it. And when we release the recipes per month, which here in a little bit, I'll talk about this month's recipes, they just comment on, you know what I mean?
Right. So you have to kind of dig through all the different comments.
And I do, but it's time consuming for everyone. And if they could just
we could get it streamlined
direct
to where it's
So for which here I'll segue into our June recipes. First off, I can't believe it's June.
I know, it's crazy.
Halfway done with the year. June recipe kits, so I don't mess it up. Backed by popular demand, and I mean popular. We had
2 true to styles this month.
And we had a lot of people request the true to style Kolsch.
Nice.
And who am I to keep that from the people? I would be a bad person if I kept that from them.
That's right. You'd be going against your own intuition.
Yeah. So we're doing the true to style Kolsch, which is James's recipe, and then actually both of them are the other's German Weiss beer. Yeah, which I still don't think I've ever brewed or had. It's not my style.
Yeah, me either. That's a Brown, Josh Brown style.
Yeah, it is a Josh Brown style, or Zach,
right?
And or Todd's wife, Liz. She's a wheat beer.
It's the yeast, I think, that gets me, because there's not tons of flavor going on with just like some Pilsner and some wheat. It's the yeast. I think it's because it's too bready or something for me.
And I've proven I can make cloves appear in whatever style I want. So I don't need a wheat beer for that. Okay.
Maybe I got burnt out on cloves, but back in my starting cigarettes days.
Yeah. That's funny. You know what is funny? What wheat beer, I'm always impressed. I always thought wheat beer, we talk about how IPAs are kind of our dividing line in our internal company.
Right.
But like wheat beers.
Well, sours is
sours
the
is
cutoff.
No, sours is no one's gone past that threshold. I say that.
I'll drink them.
You don't actively go out of your way to buy them.
Not generally. It's just, they're rough because a lot of times you'll get them in a big bottle, right? So it's like you're not going to drink that yourself. They're perfect for like shares, but even then, like they're just too acidic for me. They mess with my stomach. It's just too much.
And the older we get, that's not going to get better.
Yeah, I think that's the main issue I have with them. Like, there's a ton that I enjoy the flavor. It's just when it hits my stomach, it's just like too acidic. It's
going to be a bad night.
Yeah,
hard to sleep with acid burn.
Yeah,
in the throat.
Right. It's just like it's weird.
And I'm saying that as I smoked cigars and drink other beers.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, it's usually I have a pretty strong stomach in general. You know what I mean? But something hits me wrong
with the sour beer.
Like,
me too, man. It's everything that hits me wrong. But wheat beers though are like, and when we were younger, because you're not that much younger than me, I'm mid-30s. When we were in our 20s, I mean, Blue Moon was one of the introductory craft beers, which to me now in hindsight, I'm like, wow, because wheat beers to me now, they're very different. Like if you've been drinking Lone Star your first few years of college, the college kids, what do they drink? A Natural Light.
Right.
You're drinking Natural Light in college, and then you go to a Blue Moon. Maybe it was so popular as a gateway craft beer because it was so different. Right, you go from Natural Light to like Fireman's 4 or Shiner Bock. Those are better beer, but it's not like as drastically different taste.
Right,
and
I think a lot of it has to do with the yeast again. Whereas like your blonde ale and your Shiner, your Bock, they're going to have fairly neutral yeast,
right?
And your caramel and your malt's going to come through more. Whereas with the wheat beers, man, you really do get a big punch from the yeast.
You do, yeah, for sure. But again, all that not trying to dog on the Weiss beer at all, because I've heard people who like that style.
Oh, yeah.
It's one of the best recipes we have.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you want more information on that, you can go to homebrewhappyhour.com/club or go directly to patreon.com/homebrewhappyhour. Join one of the recipe receiving tiers. And then we will very soon, you need to check your inboxes if you're part of the club through Patreon, because we're hashing out how to get your orders in for this month. We've been trying our best to streamline, like I said, and I think we're there. We're having it to where once we get our server issues figured out, which is my goal for today, which is Thursday the 3rd. My goal for today, we have 2 goals this week. Get the server stuff done so we can at least have our Trub Club members go on Homebrew Happy Hour to place their orders direct.
Right.
Have it where you're going to pick which recipe you want, how you want it, and then put in your details for shipping, and then it's going to go to you.
Right.
So that's goal number 1, which is hopefully today. Goal number 2 is my segue to the next thing. We're trying to launch the Brow Tag brewing system this week. I think that's how it's pronounced.
Brow Tag or Brow Tag.
Yeah, we had a listener feedback a couple weeks ago.
Gotcha.
Like, Josh, I don't think you're saying
butchering
it right.
the name.
And now
man.
I can't say it right ever again.
The name.
Yeah. Oh, it's not as bad as I had Laurie and Tyler, probably not Taylor, from Brewed Up on, and they're like, what does HERM stand for? And I brain farted for a good 3 minutes where I was like, I don't even have
recirculation, something.
Heat exchange, something. Yeah, I could. I came to, but I almost edited it out because I was like, Todd's gonna watch this, and be like, you idiot. But we actually have here in the photo room, we've been taking all these photos for the Brow Tog, the controller, everything. We've been testing it.
Yeah, I brewed on it a couple weeks ago. Yeah.
How was that brewing experience on it for you?
We had a kink, but once I got that resolved, it was perfect. It was just like brewing on the system we had before. So
yeah, we've become big fans here of HERMs.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Rims and HERMs. I mean, both of those. It's a big step. It's almost like moving from a carboy to a conical or something, there's like a nice, as a gap of like an upgrade gap. You know?
Exactly. It is. I did a brew day on my own at the barn on the Brow Tog.
Right.
And it was incredible. I've brewed. Todd's not here to correct me. If without him being here, I've brewed on that system with them a million times, and I was very actively part of the brew day.
Right.
But the reality is, I wasn't. I was sitting there
behind the camera
if we were recording, or I was pretending like we were recording because Todd doesn't ever read. He doesn't even
spraying out the kettle.
I actually publish this stuff. No one's listening to this. I'm just justifying my job. But brewing, actually having Todd over my shoulder, not helping me, but just making sure I'm doing it.
Right.
That was a little annoying, but the actual brewing part on it, I was like, oh my God, we need one now. I was texting my dad. He's like, we don't have space for it. Okay. Well, that's our next goal for our brewing setup there.
Yeah.
I say that. Actually, our real main next goal is temperature controlled fermentation. That's a big one. Yeah. That helps you with just kind of expand what you can brew. Exactly. Yeah. If we did a CF15 or some kind of 15 gallon, or for, 18 gallon, I guess is technically what it'd be in volume for 15 gallon batches to future proof us and then have a glycol set up.
Oh man, you have it made for sure.
Then we'll be good to go. Yeah, especially with summer coming
loggers,
up right now.
box, anything you want to brew.
Exactly.
You can have that alt kind of
dialed in, or finally the Kolsch, because I feel like
that may be kind of what the missing
temperature fluctuation affects flavors more than maybe we want to. But like your yeast has a range, but I suspect when you're all over that range over the course of primary fermentation, you might have some things pop up.
Right.
As opposed to, no, I'm dialed in at 64 or whatever you're going to have it for the entire week.
Exactly.
No fluctuation, no ambient temperature affecting it. I'm dialed in. That'll help us on our way to make consistently better beer.
Exactly.
So that's our next goal, or that is my first priority. Then getting to 3 vessels, my next one, only because it's how much fun it was.
Sure.
The
electric aspect of it and stuff. It's nice.
It is. So that Friday is Todd and I have some stuff today to do, and then we have to work with you too, because you help get all the products on the site.
Right.
We hopefully by Friday end of day we'll have the Brow Tog for sale on homebrewsupply.com.
Nice.
And the website, people now, I'm confident enough to say you can go to browtog.com, BRAUTAG, to see what we're building on it. We like being transparent and also reminding people, especially those who listen and watch the show, this is our in-house project and it is us doing it. We developed the system.
We've been talking about it for a while,
We've talking about it for a while.
Coming to full fruition.
Yeah, it is. This is all an in-house thing. We haven't outsourced like anything besides obviously the material where it was made and all that. But the controller is all James brainchild.
Back there tinkering on them every day.
Every now and then we'll be able to hear him working on that table there because he's like pacifying kettles and labeling. Like it's a true mom and pop kind of endeavor that we're trying to get across through our presentation and marketing. Like, I think our price point when we come in at it, which is Todd won't let me divulge that until it's official. People are going to be happy. The price point's where it needs to be.
Makes sense. Yeah.
And also too, we want to, like, this is our baby. It's become our baby. How many versions we've tested it.
Right.
And finally dialed it in.
Tweaks
I'm super proud of it.
Yeah.
I'm excited. So hopefully when we launch it, if we sell one this year, I'll be happy. Okay?
Yeah. And get good feedback.
We do.
Right.
And then Todd has talked about doing an experience side of this thing
like
too,
the ranch project thing.
As people are getting vaccinated or COVID.
Right. I didn't even think about that being the huge hiccup in that side of the.
Yeah. Well, last year we were supposed to launch all this.
Right.
And then COVID happened.
Yeah. It's almost like last year is like a skipped a year.
It really was. What's that Third Eye Blind song? Losing a whole year.
Right.
That whole song.
It feels like it.
I just play it on loop every day.
Like I think about things that are like 2-3 years ago. It's like, no, that's 3 or 4 years ago.
We
missed all. Yeah.
We did. Yeah. I have a bad tendency to do that though with anything where I'll say, oh, like 10 years ago, but 10 years ago was actually 4 years ago. Oh no.
We're in trouble here.
The heck is going on in here? You ever do the podcast without me?
You gotta go, man. You gotta go.
Hey.
I promised you I'd never do this again.
That's good.
That wasn't awkward. At least he was here after I was talking about him.
That is all he came in here for, I think.
I
thought he maybe actually needed something.
He knew we were recording. He's
good.
He's a jerk. That was funny. Anyway, so that's probably my cue to get off the small talk. So yes. Oh no, one more thing. HomebrewCon pass giveaway.
Oh, nice.
I
saw that we
gave one away to Trub Club only. Ernest was the winner. Congratulations, Ernest, on winning. Ernest B, and I think he just joined in May.
That's good. Things happen when you join.
That's right. Yeah, that's what I have to keep sucking up to the new members.
Right.
No, Ernest B won, and now we have 4 to give away to anybody.
Oh, nice.
And they can go if you go to our social media. The link is embedded there, like on our Facebook.com/Homebrew Happy Hour, or Instagram is where we post it as well, and our Twitter, or go to homebrewhappyhour.com.
You just fill out your email.
Yeah. So there's a banner on homebrewhappyhour.com in the sidebar, and it says HomebrewCon ticket giveaway. Click here, and all we do is get your email.
Nice.
And go to our newsletter, which people who are already a part of our newsletter know. It's at best weekly, so we're not spamming you.
Yeah.
We're just
they can get overwhelming if you sign up for a handful and it's like you're getting 3 a day from each one.
And we'll never do that, mainly because I forget. But we also don't have, like, when podcast episodes go out is when we typically just say, hey, new episode.
Sure.
Also, here's what we're up to. But that's the exchange. That's it. It's
that's easy enough.
It is easy enough.
Yeah.
So if they go to homebrewhappyhour.com.
I didn't know we had that many to give away. That's cool.
We do. And it is we're presenting on Friday the 18th at.
Is this June or July?
June.
This is this month already.
It is, yes. Not next week, but the next.
Do you know?
Week after.
Do you know what we're presenting
on Herms?
Is it on the Herms? Okay.
It is. Nice, yeah, we're gonna have.
Last year was an awesome. Y'all did a great job.
I enjoyed it, and this year, so I have a meeting with the AHA today because they got a new platform, and this new platform doesn't support what we did last year, the multi-camera, and my whole board, all this setup you see in front of us that people on the camera can't see, they didn't support.
You guys are getting a little too professional.
Well, their new platform is basically, you just plug in your webcam and then you just talk to your audience.
Yeah,
so like that's not going to work for Todd.
Thing almost, yeah.
I told them, I was like, listen, I got to justify my job a little bit better than a webcam. Todd can do a webcam and just talk to it. We can't. No, so we have a meeting today with their developer to try to figure it out. Otherwise, we're gonna. Worst case, we're going to pre-record a multi-camera presentation, and then play it during that, and then come live to do a Q&A.
Oh, that wouldn't be too bad.
Last year, the Q&A was... so what I was telling them at the AHA, what I loved about HomebrewCon last year, our presentation specifically, was the interacting during the presentation. Yeah. Todd and James were on camera, and I'm manning the gear and watching the chat.
Right.
And I could interact with them in real time as our presentation's going.
People were asking questions, and if they... even if, because I was trying to help monitor chat too,
exactly. We had to get you,
but it was still awesome to be able to kind of present some of those questions live.
Exactly.
Too. Yeah.
So this year, if we have to pre-record, then I guess we'll all be able to monitor chat during the presentation.
That's true.
And just textually answer them. But HomebrewCon is fun to attend. I wish it was in San Diego this year in person.
2 years in a row. It's like those are some of the ones we were really looking forward to. I
don't want to talk about
driving to Tennessee.
Last year we were going to drive to Nashville and have a real nice booth set up.
With the bar.
That with the bar.
That would have been sweet.
No, and then this year we're like, San Diego.
Yeah.
And next year, nothing.
Do they have it planned?
It's in Pittsburgh.
Okay.
We have to Pittsburgh. we have a lot of listeners up there. We love Pittsburgh. No, there's nothing wrong with Pittsburgh.
Of course,
I'm not dogging Pittsburgh.
Yeah,
I'm just saying
it's not on the coast, and it's,
that's what I mean. The weather's going to be probably pretty hot.
Yeah,
in June, middle of June in Pittsburgh.
Sure.
It's not the same as middle of June San Diego. Is all I'm saying. But I'm also just been wanting to get out to California. But anyways, I do believe that is all the small talk I have. We'll get right into the show. But first, I do have this little bit. Oh, let me make sure that that's turned up. We have some listener feedback. So that you haven't gotten to hear this yet.
It's time for listener feedback.
Took me like 30 seconds to make that bumper. Anyway, listener feedback today came from our buddy Kyle M, and he texted in to 325-305-6107. He wrote, "Hey Josh, this isn't feedback on a specific episode. However, I wanted to suggest that you guys do more live streaming on your channel. Some of my favorite videos from you guys are when you live streamed your brew days or just chit chat. Keep up the great work." Kyle, thank you for submitting that. I agree. Todd, we've been so busy with other projects that we haven't had time. Well, even with brewing. So we've been brewing the same recipe for like seven or eight in a row. There's like 9 total, right? That we have to do.
Minus, the same recipe versus with a small
different hop
change of hop. Yeah, 1 hop per. Right. Yeah, we got a supplier out of, I guess, are they out of Minnesota?
Or Michigan?
Michigan,
yeah.
And they sent us some hops coming to like hybrids or like new strains to the market. So we're doing test batches for each hop that we got, kind of like almost similar to a smash, but we got a little bit of caramel malt in there and stuff. Just to kind of get a good idea of how each hop tastes.
And it's been going good. It's just been getting. We can't do videos of brew days about a recipe because the recipe's it's a generic one for testing the hop
project hammered out.
So once that project's done, and then again with the launch of the Brow Todd was all on board with like, yes, let's focus on more video content, specifically live streaming stuff. It doesn't have to just be a brew day.
Right.
We can live stream more Q&As. We can live stream more because we are trying to have more content than just the podcast every week.
Sure.
Recipe recap also we haven't been able to record because we've been doing that same.
Right.
Todd has been, when Todd gets something in his brain, he's a stickler. It's like, this is all we're doing for right now. I was like, well, yeah, but we need some other recipes brewed. All you're brewing, dude, is this pale ale for these hops. Do you understand? And then I act like I don't understand. Well, I don't know.
Just to push his button.
But I think we have one more brew day of them.
I think there was one left.
9 total.
Yeah.
So we're almost there. The light at the end of the tunnel. But I'll be honest, like the one in the CF 15, isn't that a CF 15 in the brew room? That one it's carbonated now. Have you tried that one yet?
I haven't.
I haven't tried yours yet. I heard yours turned out real good.
It's pretty good. Yeah.
Hydra was the hop.
Hydra is the one I did.
Hydra. Okay. Yeah. James said that one turned out pretty good. I think he tried it. And then the one he has in the CF 15, not in the Blickman Fermentator, but
I'm curious to see how much difference we'll notice from batch to batch.
It'll be interesting. We get questions like that a lot where people are saying, what's the best way to test hops and how they affect my aroma?
That's it.
This is the way to do it. Find a base, kind of a neutral pale ale blonde,
or even just a smash,
just very basic for the bittering hops. I think we've been using Magnum.
Yeah, a tiny bit of Magnum at the beginning, and then the
overload of the new hops.
Right.
I think we're doing them at 5 or 15. Flame out and dry hopping.
We're not dry hopping.
Pardon me.
We had the option to, but we're just kind of skipping.
That's right. Yeah, but they've been turning out good. But yeah, that is, for anyone listening or watching, that is the best way to test, is to have a neutral smash kind of recipe to then do all very little bittering hops. And then testing hops for your...
Yeah, and then so back to the live streaming. It is tough, because we're not just doing content. You know, we do have like a operation to actually run. So it's sometimes, I think it's a scheduling thing. Like you don't live up here. So it's sometimes it's hard to get everybody together and then to just like, you know, stop work and brew or do whatever.
Well,
you know?
like I said, even this, because right now, like today, it's the skeleton crew up there with you.
Right.
So
That is the other thing I was going to mention is we're not overstaffed by any means. So,
right.
It's been,
we've got a good operation going.
It's been kind of everybody's stretched a little thin.
Yeah. It's with the time right now, it is it's summer brewing. People are starting to gear up into getting summer stuff. Y'all got so many recipes that go out, and like you're over there fulfilling orders too, having to
right
do order fulfillment and
run
stuff.
back to the phone.
Run back to the phone. Come down here.
It can be hard. It can be hard to make the time for it, but I think it does. It is good content. So we should try to get some more out there.
We will as things. I always say as things slow down, and they don't. So anyway, thank you, Kyle, for submitting that. Much like with questions, when we take your feedback on a future episode, we do give you a $25 gift card to Kegconnection.com, courtesy of the interrupting Mr. Todd Burns. So thank you, Todd, for your generosity. We do got 4 questions for y'all this week, friends. Our first one came from Vincent R., who used the submission form at homebrewhappyhour.com. Vincent wrote, as a newer homebrewer, I have enjoyed listening to all of the helpful information on your podcast. You've spoken of a grapefruit beer that Todd made, and I'm curious if your recipe calls for actual grapefruit or grapefruit juice, or do you get the flavors from the hops alone? Vincent, that's a great question. I know for that specific recipe, Joe, it's just the ingredients. There is no.
So there may
addition.
be a note on the the description or in the instructions that it is optional if you want to. One of the issues is we don't none of our suppliers are it's hard to find grapefruit peel. Like it's easier to find bitter and sweet orange peel, but the grapefruit peel is a bit tougher to find. So you could make it yourself, or add some actual grapefruit juice. We don't include that by default with the recipe. So that would be something you would incorporate yourself. But the combination of Mosaic and Citra is where you get most of that overload of citrus and a real lean towards grapefruit flavor. So by default, that's where you're going to get most of that. But again, if you wanted to kind of emphasize that a bit more, you could certainly look at doing some actual grapefruit juice or some grapefruit peel, kind of just steeping that, in the boil.
Right. And, we get questions a lot about when you're doing additives for dry hopping, even like with the grapefruit, would you sanitize that before it ever goes into the beer during secondary?
So that's definitely something I would probably do, almost like pasteurize. If you're going to use grapefruit juice and add it to the fermenter, I would probably pasteurize it. If it's peel, I would probably do it during the boil. You would probably want to peel a grapefruit, try and get as much of the pith out as you can. So the white stuff, that's close to the peel. And then maybe even you could probably steep it like that, or you may want to bake it in the oven for a bit to kind of dry it out or dehydrate it a bit. That may help some too.
Interesting.
Yeah. Cause when we order or when we get our, bitter and sweet orange peel, it's dried. It doesn't come to it because I think it'll mold. Obviously, if
you get grapefruit juice, I don't know how it is in regards to the other citrus juices that we get. Like his orange juice is just like sugar, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing you have to worry about sparking up a secondary fermentation when you pour it in?
I'm sure grapefruit juice has some sugar in it. Absolutely, yeah.
That might spark a fermentation. It's not just batch sweetening. It's going to actually potentially.
Yeah, I can't imagine that it would. It's not going to be like adding 10 pounds of dextrose, but it'll probably have enough sugar to get some fermentation going at least. Yeah.
Okay. So is that prolonged then? You need to let that then finish out, or is that just
No, it would be similar to adding something like a puree or something else. So you could it just kind of depends. So if you're going to bottle it, then it may be a consideration to add maybe a tad bit less priming sugar so you don't have bottles explode. But if you're kegging it, it may be a tad bit sweeter than if you don't let it ferment out. But the thing I've noticed, like using honey and stuff like that. If you add it and then let that honey ferment out, you lose a lot of the honey flavor because that flavor comes from the sugar. Right. So if you really want the flavor of that grapefruit juice, if you're adding your puree, then you may want to add it right at the end of fermentation before you keg it.
I would argue, for specifically Vincent's question, the grapefruit, the ocarina grapefruit is the recipe on homebrewsupply.com.
Texas grapefruit.
And Texas grapefruit is what it's called on Kegconnection. The combination of the Citra and the Mosaic, it produces a very convincing grapefruit. Where I think it's not. I like it because it is between punch you in the face and subtle, because it's definitely there, but it's not overwhelming grapefruit.
Right.
It's very, especially on a hot day. Like last night, it was a little warm. We get back to the ranch. I got there like 5:45, and a kind of breeze is coming, but it's still kind of hot. And he still has his grapefruit, the ocarina grapefruit on tap. Yeah. Poured it and sat out there. I was like, oh, okay, this is why I come up here. Yeah, this is why I come up here. And I don't usually run to these hoppier beers.
Right.
But that ocarina, I would say, try the recipe first, Vincent. And if it's not enough grapefruit
that's
for
a great suggestion.
Can you now tell me this? If it wasn't grapefruit enough, he's already kegged it. Can he go into the keg with the juice or whatever he chooses? When I did that, I did that puree and that cream ale, that blackberry. That's how I did it. I poured the puree directly into the keg and just kegged on top. So you could certainly do that, after you've already kegged, open that up, or obviously degas it, open it up, add some grapefruit juice, close it, repressurize it, probably purge it of oxygen. And you should be good to go. Maybe give it like a good tip to kind of mix it up real well. But it was what was the most Easter? It had to have been my aunt. We had it at their house, and she had a Kolsch, and I thought it was delicious, but she wasn't quite happy with it. And she goes, I might experiment with this. What can I do? I kind of want grapefruit. And me and my dad told her, like, you could probably just dry hop right now, Citra and Mosaic, and that should be convincing. And I only knew that from
that
recipe. From the ocarina recipe, because I was like, the combination of those produces a very convincing grapefruit. It does, yeah. Like it's spot on. There's no mistaking it.
I remember when that recipe, I think Lorena developed that, and it was like one of it happened to be, we got a grandfather unit for the shop, the brick and mortar shop. And Keith wanted me to brew a batch, like while I was working the store that day in store, and I was like, well, we got this new IPA. I'll try this. And I brewed it, fermented it, and kegged it. And we had this, it wasn't a grand opening. It was some kind of just little party.
The party.
We had a little party out back, and I had that on tap, and I couldn't believe how good it turned out. It was like, at the time, like one of the best beers I thought I had ever brewed myself, and it was like, it had people coming, and I was like, you got to try this. You got to, it was like one of those like, moments, like enlightenment moments of like, this is where it's at. Like, this is the kind of beer that I
can make really good
want to make and want to drink. Right. Yeah.
Lorena's, every time I say like, oh, this is some of the best thing I've done, she's attached to it somehow.
Right.
Like every beer I've ever brewed.
She's got a real knack. Well, I mean, she's been in the brewing game for so long, and she's just, she's got an
Keith,
understanding.
who was listeners, he used to own Homebrew Supply, the domain that Todd got it from. But we're still very good friends with Keith. I just had breakfast with him.
Oh, nice.
And we were talking about Lorena, and I was like, dude, she needs to come on our show all the time now, please. And he's like, oh, she's busy, this or that.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, whatever, man. Just you're basically not her boss, however it works out, but like,
contractor, or something like that.
Yeah. She manages the forums for him and whatnot. But anyways, we love you,
and
Lorena.
does a lot with Brewer's Friend too, I think.
Yes, Brewer's Friend, Homebrew Talk. She writes for us on Homebrew Happy Hour. She is, like I said, an underutilized resource because she doesn't have a strong social media game. Right. Like she just doesn't care. Like she's living her best life.
She's doing her own thing. Yeah.
She's living her best life. She's living the dream. Yeah. Lorena's living the dream. But I'm like, man, people always ask me who are my top, heroes in the industry. And, I love John Blakeman. He's up there. John Palmer as a brewer is always up there. Lorena's like my top one. And it gets almost to the level of creepiness because we know each other and I text her sometimes. Like, hey, what are you doing?
That's good.
But she's awesome. We love her.
She's great.
Anyways, Vincent, my suggestion to wrap up the question, I think you'll be happy with how the recipe itself turns out. If it's not enough grapefruit for you, there's options for you to not just have to do another batch and resolve it in that second batch, but adding the grapefruit flavor to the current batch through either,
especially if you're kegging,
especially if you're right. That is the caveat. If you bottled, sorry, bro. Cut up a grapefruit
or like one pellet of like hops in each bottle or something.
You remember the vendor? I don't even know if they still sell them. That would sell hop.
The squirt little
case for like.
I do. I don't know.
They gave you a Budweiser.
Yeah.
Put this in there, and now it's an IPA.
It was a strange deal.
Did you ever do it?
Yeah. We got they sent us some samples, so I was messing around with it. And
were they convincing?
It was not very convincing.
Okay,
It wasn't terrible, but it was not. You know, I don't think it was ever something that was going to take off.
See, I have a very blue pill or whatever they called it in the Matrix view on things. Like whenever the guy's having lunch with the agent or dinner and he's like, I know this isn't real, but ignorance is, if you can convince my brain it's real, I don't care how it got there.
You're in for it.
Yeah. But some of those like add this into your, your.
It's got to be a better outlook than being like red pilled, to the core. Right.
Yeah. Like, but if it's not convincing, if I put that extract in my Budweiser and now it just tastes like Budweiser with Citra, I'm not probably going to have a good day. Like I need it to be more convincing.
Yeah.
Like, which in the beginning part, just get a beer you like.
Exactly. I think that's the bottom line.
That is the bottom line.
Right.
Is drink the beer
brew or buy something that you're going to like.
If you're at a party and you didn't bring beer you like, you either be a gentleman and you drink their beer or you decline.
Well, it used to be awesome back in college. I would bring, go to a party and bring craft beer and it's like nobody would touch it. It was nice. It was like, you just put it, we're not even worried about putting it in the fridge and nobody grabbing it.
Who brought the bougie beer?
Yeah.
Like, oh, don't worry about that. Yeah. I remember those same things too, hanging out with friends and when I was first getting into craft beer. And my craft was just whatever I got from Real Ale.
Sure.
And it was like, Hans Pills, no, I'm going to crack open the natty. Like, that's fine.
Yeah.
Everyone should drink what they like.
Steer clear of my beer. Yeah.
Steer clear. But anyways, Vincent, thank you so much for submitting your question. Moving on to the second question, which was a text message to our hotline from 325-305-6107. Came from our buddy Matthew C. And Matthew wrote, I've been bitten by the brewing bug and I want to ferment everything. Beer, cider, kombucha, cold coffee, you name it, I'm going to start making it. Can I use the same equipment for all of it, or should I keep it separate? Matthew, we've kind of touched on this before on questions about people like, I'm going to brew sour.
Yeah.
And I'm going to brew also normal. That's derogatory. I'm going to brew non-sour. Should I keep it separate? And the consensus with like me, James, and Todd on that episode was probably because of the yeast you're adding in that fermentation. It can stick around if you have any kind of like you don't want to rely on your one fermenting vessel to not have residual
like a nick or anything that can harbor
because that sour yeast will stick around, right? It'll live in there.
It can. I mean, obviously we use sanitizer and cleaner to try and kill it, but it can. And some of the other considerations like coffee, it's like that may leave, especially in like kegs, with root beer, we've noticed it like leaving a really bad or not bad. And if you like the smell of root beer,
noticeable smell.
A noticeable smell that's just really hard to get rid of. Even you can clean it 100 times and you still have that kind of that odor of root beer. So those are some of the considerations. I would say if you're fermenting in plastic, then you probably definitely want to make sure if you're going to be fermenting sours in plastic, then have a separate bucket or whatever it is for that sour. Steel and glass is a little bit less of an issue because you're going to have it's less porous, so you're going to have less place for that bacteria and wild yeast to harbor. I would say for ciders and beer, you should be pretty much cider, beer, and wine. You shouldn't really have that kind of fear or issue. But again, coffee, root beer, sours, those are the main ones that it would be a higher consideration of having a separate, keg or fermenting vessel or sometimes even a kettle, because a lot of sours are done like sour kettle or kettle sour nowadays. So, if you're going to introduce that bacteria directly to your kettle, just be aware that, it may be harder to get rid of than
right. And again, like we're saying, we prefacing it, like it's not a guarantee. It's just being safe, because the worst thing that would happen is if you brew a straightforward ale and it gets
full
infected.
of Brettanomyces or something.
Exactly. Like that would be the worst.
I mean, and again, it's not the worst thing in the world, but it's it's not what you intended. So something to keep in mind.
Yeah. I know a lot of people have had it infected, but then they're like, you know what though? It tastes fine.
Well, that's the thing. If it's like if you get an infection with like a Brettanomyces or a lactobacillus, something that is often introduced on purpose. It's not the end of the world all the time, for sure.
You may not have intended for that sour Kolsch, but man, is that what came?
Right.
That's the only version of Kolsch I haven't brewed yet. I will say with kombucha, as someone who makes it fairly regularly, you're going to end up with different vessels because you keep what's called like a SCOBY hotel. Right. If you can't, like, I have a wide mouth fermentation vessel. The glass ones, the brand name I don't mention, but I have one of those, and that's my SCOBY hotel.
Right.
You
like cut a piece off and start a new.
Yeah. Well, that houses all the mamas and the daughters from the mothers, and I'll pull from there.
Right. To start a batch.
Right. And
then I guess, those SCOBYs, which is like a symbiotic
culture of bacterial
of probiotics, basically. Yeah. So it is bacteria. So I would treat it similar to a sour.
I would too. Exactly. Right. That's what I'm saying.
But I don't think you're not supposed to do kombucha in plastic or steel.
You're
right?
not supposed to. Well, I think steel's okay, but I always do it in glass.
Yeah.
Everything's
it's got to be, because you keg. Everybody serves kombucha out of kegs.
Correct. Yeah. I was just, so it has to be able to.
Obviously people bottle it, but a lot of people
serve it in kegs. We that's how I have that 3 gallon. So I brew like a 5 gallon batch, because then I keep a gallon of it for the hotel to keep those ladies happy.
Right.
And then they're hungry little.
Right.
And then I put the rest of it in the keg, and then I'll either give like a gallon as a starter to someone else. Because kombucha is the new friendship bread.
That's like the sourdough starter.
I've been trying to get Todd actually, he just isn't like jumping to do it. Because right now he's been on, he had that procedure,
right,
and he's been on strong antibiotics for 6 weeks.
Sure.
That kills your gut. And I was like, Todd, look, it might just even be placebo, but hear me out. Try drinking kombucha for just a month, every day, 8 ounces.
Yeah.
Just try it. I think you'll notice a difference in your gut health.
Kind of build that culture back up.
Antibiotics it kills in theory just the bad, but some good has to go with it.
Absolutely.
I'm not a doctor. People always write me in when I make claims.
And you're building like immunities to those antibiotics as you continue to take them, different ones and stuff. Yeah. So I can't imagine it would be a bad thing.
No, and I hear horror stories. There's he's considered to be the best grappler in the world. His name's Gordon Ryan.
Sure.
And he was probably on steroids, but he got staph. And he had to take I think it turned into MRSA.
Severe
antibiotics. He had to take strong antibiotics, and he's never recovered from it. Which again, some people go, oh, that's also because the anabolics he's on and blah, blah, blah. But still, my point being, like, the probiotics that are found in kombucha are probably the only reason I drink it. It's not necessarily, I don't enjoy the taste hardly ever, but knowing like it could be placebo. But if my brain's convinced, that's all that matters to me. My brain's like, oh, okay.
Well, and then you're making it too. So it's kind of like,
it's so easy.
Right.
That's the follow up to it too. I commend you. I would say, Matthew, brewing kombucha is the most cost effective way of consuming kombucha, because like we always talk about with brewing beer, if you brew your own beer, you're not saving money.
Yeah.
You're not.
It's easy. It's a nice thought, but generally, you're just buying more equipment.
You're just buying more equipment. And if you value your time at all,
right.
But with kombucha, if you can make tea on a stove, you can make kombucha.
Right.
It is the easiest thing you'll ever make. And a little like 12 ounce of kombucha in a grocery store.
Oh,
is it? $5?
Yeah, that's
a bottle.
The thing, right? It's expensive to buy.
You could brew a 5 gallon batch with $12 of supplies.
Right.
If you buy a starter SCOBY, then going forward with your other SCOBY, now
sugar and tea.
How much is 25 tea bags?
Right.
And some sugar?
Well, and then there's like, they're really fun to experiment around with. Like if you like brewing beer for the experimenting purposes, then like you can really do a lot with kombucha. We used to have a guy in San Marcos, or he may still be there. I'm just not there anymore. That would be at the farmer's market. He bought a bunch of Penlock kegs from us back there
for kombucha.
Yeah, he would serve and sell kombucha on the square, and it was just awesome. You would get like a mango lime and just a bunch of different flavors that were just awesome to try and experiment with.
If the economy really taints and when Todd fires me, Joshua's nature kombucha.
There you go.
I've already got the bumper ready. I'm going to switch this podcast over.
We'll see you on the Square and Kyle every weekend.
Hey, can I pour a sample of Josh's natural kombucha? But anyways, Vincent, or pardon me, Matthew, for this question, it depends on what you're brewing to keep it separate. I think it's always a good policy if you can have separate gear, but not everyone, it's in their budget.
Yeah.
Sanitation is going to be your best friend, Matthew. Sure. Sanitation and cleanliness.
And again, glass and steel versus plastic. It's just going to be, a better result.
And if you go on like Reddit, glass is not popular.
Is it?
Yeah,
because of the break factor.
But I love glass carboys.
Me too.
I feel I like watching the fermentation.
That's a huge thing for me too.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
watching the chunkies.
Yeah, but then someone would tell me and reply to that, "Well, get a tilt, do this, and or."
Well, do they have cameras on the tilts?
No cameras, but the sensors for because I'm watching mainly like, I see crowds and I see activity.
Right,
it's good.
But I mean, it's fun to watch. Not only,
it is fun to watch.
not just because you can ensure that you're fermenting. Yeah,
that's my entertainment.
Exactly,
I'm a simple man. I got a coloring book and I'm watching fermentation. I'm a simple man. Matthew, thank you so much for submitting your question. Moving on to the third question of this week's show, it came from Zachary, who used the submission form at homebrewhappyhour.com. And Zachary wrote, I'm still new to all of this, so one question I have is understanding the difference between maltodextrin and lactose. My local shop sent me home with a recipe that called for lactose, but they sent it with maltodextrin. When I called, they said that it was basically a one-for-one trade-off. Is one better than the other for certain circumstances? This is why I had you on, because this is not my wheel well of substitutions. You sometimes have to, because of supply chain stuff, you have to be very conscious of, we're out of this hop. I'm going to call the customer and tell them we have this other hop that is a very close. I think you'll be happy with it. Can we substitute for you?
Right.
Have you done that with
Malto? Sometimes if we know we're having issues with a Galaxy or something, we just can't get it. Yeah. We'll make a note in the description that we've got a really good substitution and here's what we're currently sending in its place. But yeah, to that particular question, I definitely wouldn't say they're one for one. The main difference is you're not going to really get much sweetness from maltodextrin, where you're going to get significant sweetness from lactose. It's a milk sugar. But they do, they do work somewhat similarly. Like they have a lot of things that they do the same, adding like body, fullness and head retention. So those things, a lot of those boxes will get checked by using both, but you really won't get that like residual. Neither of them really ferment. So you're going to have, that's what they kind of stay behind. But you just really don't get much sweetness from maltodextrin where you do from lactose. So
I was just saying with like a milk stout,
right? Exactly.
I can't imagine wanting to use maltose. Not just it's like, I might be using the word wrong. Lactose adds that creamy mouthfeel that is like signature to some styles.
Yeah. And maltodextrin does some of that.
Okay.
So it'll give some fullness and some mouthfeel, some kind of, some of that, but you won't have that sweetness that comes along with the lactose. So like for New England style IPAs, a lot of those use them. And then again, a lot of stouts. So I would probably opt for lactose if you can get it for those specific styles. But there are, maltodextrin. I think a lot of people also use it like in place of like a Carapils, which is a malt that I think it's called a dextrin malt, where it adds, it doesn't really give you much sugar content, but you use like a pound or so per 5 gallon batch to give you that fullness, that head retention, that kind of thing. So there is difference. There's a difference.
Okay, right on. Well, that's what
the main difference again is the sweetness that lactose will leave behind that the maltodextrin won't.
He didn't say what his recipe was,
like the style. Yeah,
right. So
I imagine it was probably a stout if I had to guess.
That's what I would guess too, using that. And I mean, if he says he's all new to this, I doubt he jumped right into a hazy.
Yeah,
he could have.
Sure. I mean, if that's what you like to drink,
then that's what you're
just depends on what you like, right? Is how most people choose what they want to brew.
Yeah. But I know one thing I don't envy about supply shops and like what you do is that whole like juggling of supply chain availability and what you can sub. It's like you have to be a walking index of just like
we actually had a brewery out in Llano that came up and picked a huge order up from us, but they were saying that they don't really order enough. They do like, a batch a month or something. Right. So they don't order enough to go to like an actual distributor. They go to like different homebrew shops around here. And the last one they were going was just, they kept trying to substitute almost everything they were ordering. It's just
like a different recipe.
Yeah, exactly. So they were like, we just had to find somebody else. It's like,
that's crazy. Yeah. Well, and it is weird how like you brought up Gallops earlier. I don't know the status of it this year's harvest or this year's.
It's been a lot better.
Okay, because remember,
last year, the year before, I think it was
2 or 3 years ago.
I think it was a lot of it had to do with had like I want to say hurricane, but I don't. It was like natural disaster in New Zealand where they're grown. So that was like
I remember
lot of the harvest
because we had just pushed like that Galaxy Smash on Homebrew Supply. Like we were doing a promotion to push it, and then like a day or two later,
Galaxy's unavailable for months.
Like back up. No, I almost wanted to send a follow up email like just kidding.
Yeah, we have to sub
April Fools in April 5th or whatever it was.
Right.
It was.
That's just how it works sometimes,
And also, there are more people brewing. There's more craft breweries popping up, or microbreweries, or non-macro breweries popping up everywhere. I know. I mean, it's a season, right? Like I think the BA would say, actually, in a lot of cities, they're shutting down like crazy. But I still see new breweries popping up all the time, and then so that new brewery is in a bulk order, and so sometimes
they do it like the breweries and even some other stores. They do it a bit different where they're on contracts with the hop farmers,
right?
And so it's not like, oh, we're running low on this, let me make an order for this. It's like, no, they are contracted to a certain amount each year. So even if X amount is grown, it's like, another X amount is already spoken for. So
yeah, it's wild. But Zachary, I think your homebrew shop, obviously we don't have the tone or the context. They're probably, I bet the conversation was more like, don't worry about it in this.
It's the recipe's still going to turn out great.
Exactly. Yeah. But yeah, if you send us more details, or you can even email Joe E at homebrewsupply.com
or support at homebrewsupply.com.
You can, he can help you figure out if the recipe would be that much better with lactose. But like you said, it's probably the recipe is going to turn out great.
Yeah. And it also if you're using like a quarter pound of lactose, it's not going to, that's not going to be a big
huge
impact.
Difference. Yeah. Yeah, that's what I always tell Todd when I use Folgers instead of some high-end coffee. I'm like, look, you're not going to tell the difference. Well, you said this Imperial Coffee Stout, this breakfast stout clone.
It turned out great.
Yeah. And I used Folgers. So in your face, give me your expensive, not Kama Sutra. What's the name of Kona?
Right.
Kona and Sutra. I always say Kama Sutra, and that's a whole different thing. And my search history is all raunchy. Anyway, Zachary, thank you so much for submitting that question. We've got one last question. This is where I got the name Parker from. Not Peter. Peter helped us with the PHP. Parker submitted a question this week using the submission form at homebrewhappyhour.com. Parker wrote, is there any risk of off flavors or too strong of flavors if I dump everything from my kettle into my fermenter? Call me lazy or call me crazy, but I was just given a kettle that doesn't have a valve on it. I know I can siphon my wort into the bucket, but what if I just dump it all? I mean, and in all caps, he put it all. What's the pros and cons of letting it all sit in primary and then siphoning out the good stuff when I transfer? Parker, I too like to live dangerously. No, I don't do it for the sake of clarity.
I was going to say that. I think that's really the main thing. I don't know if you're going to get a ton. I don't know if you're really going to affect flavor too much, haziness and clarity. But I mean, even then, like during fermentation, a lot of that's going to drop out anyway. So I mean, the idea behind cold crashing or not cold crashing rather, but chilling, you get the faster you can chill, the more of the stuff in suspension. So protein, hop debris, all that stuff is going to coagulate together and fall out. So you can try and avoid as much of that as you can. But again, if you do end up, just pouring that stuff in, it's not the end of the world for sure. Again, it's going to end up probably most of that at least is going to settle out during fermentation, during the cleanup phase of fermentation. So, then at that point you're going to unless you're using, unless you're using a fermentation vessel with a valve on it, you're going to siphon from above the trub anyway. So I don't think you're definitely not messing up to like ruining any batches by doing that. I don't think.
Here's a follow-up question that he didn't include, but I've gotten similar questions before. And is that affect your gravity readings at all? If you intrude, I mean, cause you're not putting, I know the answer to it. I think if you put Trub in there, certainly you're not putting Trub in your flask when you're doing the reading.
Yeah.
So therefore, having Trub in the primary should not affect your gravity reading.
If it does, it would probably be shouldn't be enough to really. I can't imagine it would.
As long as it doesn't make it. I mean, because the Trub can affect your gravity reading,
like the physical way that the hydrometer reads. But you know what I mean.
Yeah,
like if you've got too much at the bottom of your flask.
If you're drawing liquid, just the liquid,
Right.
from a vessel that has the residuals and stuff,
Shouldn't be
it
an
shouldn't
issue.
at all, because I
Right.
mean that's basically what we're all doing on our readings
Right,
anyway. Like, there
right.
is no Trub free fermentation.
Exactly. I don't think you'll have an issue. The only thing I guess I've like tannins is popping into my head, but I think that's usually from like, you really get that from the mash, like emptying out the mash completely into your boil kettle, like towards the end of that mash. Sometimes you can get some tannins from those grains, but I don't think that, as long as they weren't introduced from the mash to the boil kettle, I don't think you're going to get those from boiling the wort, you know?
Yeah. Parker he may have influenced what I do going forward. Dad, we don't need to just dump it all.
Well, I mean, I was going to say, when you are dumping it, you're introducing quite a bit of oxygen before you put your yeast. So
that's a great
we used
point.
to do that. But we did have a funnel, a little funnel with a screen. So we would just dump our kettle through that. Sorry, and funnel, but it would get kind of clogged. So sometimes we would just throw that funnel out and just end up dumping it all anyways, you know?
I say we use an Amstel kettle for right now for our boil kettle, and it has a nice ball valve on it. And we just go right there, right into, I think we still use a Genesis fermenter when it's available.
Yeah, it's
And
nice when you
flash
have
it
the
and-
valve, because you can do like a whirlpool and kind of like,
Right.
a lot of times if you do a decent whirlpool, it'll kind of cone up in the middle, and then you're drawing from the side, so you don't even have to worry about. You can just open it up and it'll draw around that.
But like
cone.
Parker's saying, if it's nice to have free gear given to us. And if you don't want to, you could always add a ball valve.
Yep.
We've done that many times here. Sure. You've done it to a gazillion coolers. I've seen you do it.
Yeah, it's a little easier with plastic,
Sure,
but we've used the same hole saws we used to drill through like the wood for shanks.
Yep.
We've made those work for. They're not going to last very long. Like they dull pretty quick going through steel, but you could get a hole punched in one, and we sell the ball valve and the bulkhead, everything you would need to install a ball valve there.
Yeah. So that is an option, Parker. If you did, because also having valves isn't just for outlet. I mean, you could start reusing that kettle or introducing a way for recirculation in that kettle.
Sure.
If you wanted to use it multiple stages, or if you were going to build your own kind of rims or Herm setup, or there's a gazillion reasons why ball valves do make the kettles that much more functional.
Handy,
but if you're happy with your brew process and you don't need it,
but I mean, at the same time too, it's like sometimes they'll spring leaks.
You're
so
right.
sometimes it's nice to just not have to worry about just having a hole in the bottom, right?
Well, what are those? I think, do we still have those sale kettles? And those don't have ball. Oh no,
they don't. We have the option though.
We have the option.
Yep.
We've sold a bunch without.
Man, there's such a good deal.
Oh,
too.
it's a heck of a deal.
For a 7.5 gallon kettle. It's like dirt cheap.
And I think that's the new one for all the equipment kits, right? So all the equipment kits just get this upgraded, basically 8-gallon kettle,
right.
A nice kettle. It doesn't have the ball valve, but like we've been saying, you either when you're transferring from your boil to a fermentation, it's at a temperature that your plastic auto siphon, if that's what you're using, is not going to leach plastic into your wort.
Well, yeah, as long as you chilled it. Right,
that's what I mean. Because you're not going to transfer pre-chill. But
generally not.
Generally not.
I used to have to.
Did you really?
Yeah, we used to have a really crummy chiller, and so we just at some point we just stopped using it using it because just the crummy chiller itself plus Texas heat, it was like it was just like we'd hit a wall at 90 and we just it wouldn't move, so we would end up just going ahead and transferring into the fermenter at 90 and then just waiting till the next day to pitch the yeast.
Dang.
Yeah,
that's Todd, we still have that $5 bet where he told me he would do all the hot stuff on one Saturday and then start fermentation on the following Saturday, and he wouldn't have any issues at all with that bet.
Right.
And it's been like 2 years since we made that bet. And he hasn't done it.
He has still tried it out.
Yeah, he won't.
That's how we used to do it, and I mean we didn't really run into issues, but it's not ideal.
You didn't wait a week though.
No, not a week.
24 hours.
Yeah, not a week
for it to get to temp.
Right.
Yeah. My whole point, if you're going to use a plastic, because my dad and I have done that before, where we had kettles that didn't have. Most of those extract ready kits,
sure,
like
they're not going to have.
They're not. Yeah, but they do have an auto siphon.
Yeah.
So, but if you're getting your wort down to pitch temps, it's safe to put the plastic in there that's sanitized, obviously.
Sure.
And then start auto siphoning it out.
Yep.
And
not as easy as dumping it though.
it is definitely not as easy.
Yeah.
That's what I was saying. That's game changing. I wish I would have. I don't know. We were doing it with auto siphon because that's how the instructions go. And don't get me wrong, it helped. It did help with clarity sooner.
Well, and also if you're using a bucket, then that's easy peasy. But if you're doing a carboy, you're going to have a funnel if you're going to be dumping
That's a
it like
great
that.
point. Yeah, unless you have a wider mouth one,
right?
This big,
right?
And you're not going to dump a kettle
unless you're planning on losing some of it.
Yeah, a lot of it. Yeah. But anyways, Parker, thank you so much for submitting your question. Joe.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Dude, I appreciate your time, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry I took your hour and however many minute change.
It's all good.
I appreciate it. I'll let you get back up there. We gotta figure some, recipe recap is coming back once we have the ability to not have to brew the same recipe over and over. We gotta get you more on recipe recap too, because the recipes that you've been doing for Homebrew Supply or not, and the recipes we've been doing for the Trub Club, we just need help brewing them.
Yeah,
we got so many.
We've got a lot of work ahead of us.
This month, maybe I'll ask you to brew the Truda style because I butcher Kolsch every time I brew them, and I'll do the Weissbier. I'll brew the Weissbier because I can do that style. I can do that style. Non-Claire, clovey, bananas. I got that nailed down. But anyways, I appreciate your time, my friend.
Yes, sir.
And we'll do it again soon.
All right, brother. See you soon.
And that will do it for this episode of the Homebrew Happy Hour. If you have a question you would like us to discuss on a future episode, you can go to homebrewhappyhour.com and click on that submit a question link at the top of the page, or now you can call or text them in by using 325-305-6107. Thank you to our show sponsor, Imperial Yeast. Get a free pack of Imperial Yeast with your monthly recipe kits when you join our Trub Club. You can go to homebrewhappyhour.com/club to learn more, or patreon.com/homebrew happy hour. On behalf of Todd Burns, James Carlson, and the Pearl Media Network, I'm Joshua Stubing. Thank you for listening.